Welcome. I need you to just kind of go through this PowerPoint with me so you understand what I'm asking you to do. The main thing is that I need you to read chapter 8. Make sure that you did turn in your weekend homework, though, which was the choice board for chunk 2. There were 6 choices as always, but you were only supposed to do 2. Both of those responses were supposed to be written as full peels. Some of you turned in something last week that was not a full peel. So to get credit, they need to have restatement. They need to mention the author and the title and restate the prompt you're doing, and then include 2 examples from the text with explanations of how they go with your point, and then of course a link to some bigger idea. Do not rush through this part because those are your weekly writing assignments that you need to spend a little more time on. Check your non-negotiables as well. As far as this assignment that we're talking about, you're going to read chapter 8. We are on to a different dog. As you read chapter 8, I want you to think about this standard today. You know that the theme is the moral or the lesson of a story. I want you to think about, how does setting, mood, and tone contribute to developing a story's theme? Okay, so how does setting, mood, and tone create a theme, or at least support a theme? Okay, with that being said, we need to review. What do I mean by setting? Of course, you guys will instantly say it's the time and the place, the where and the when. And you're exactly right. But I also want you to remember, as you get older and you read a little bit more complex text, it's also going to reach out and start including some other things. It might be like the weather. Beyond that, it could be thinking things like the social environment, the religious environment. If there's a war raging outside the window, that's still part of the setting. If somebody's living in a very poor neighborhood, that would be a social issue. Those are all things that would feed into the surrounding area. So don't just go to the when and the where. I've given you a slide here to help you remember. Physical surroundings include sights and sounds and colors. That's going to go perfect for these dogs. Obviously, the dog in chapter 8 is going to be telling the story. And since dogs are really reacting to what they see or hear, that's what you're getting most of the time for the setting. We talked about how it's ambiguous because they never give you a specific location, but they will give you some, surrounding area that you can infer. Emotional surroundings is different. That's going to be the other 2 I'm getting ready to talk about, and that is a mood and a tone. And the character's actions, believe it or not, can actually create this emotional surrounding, whether it's a positive emotional surrounding or a negative emotional surrounding, and that helps with developing a type of setting as well. So the dog may not know what feelings are, but there is an element of where the dog is telling the story, and you can infer what those feelings would be if the dog could recognize them. The last one is the time. Obviously, is this present day? Do you think it's in the past? Do you think it's in the future? When the story takes place. I know it's ambiguous, but there are some hints starting to be dropped in a few of these chapters that you need to pick up on. Then we have mood. Okay, this is one of those emotional surroundings we were talking about. The mood is what you feel when you read, okay? So don't get that confused, because mood is me. Think mood is me. It's you reading the words, but while you're reading it, it creates a feeling in you. And you're the reader, so you are being affected by the setting. So that means how you feel is being basically put into that environment. Okay, so if you're reading a scary story and it's producing some kind of fear in you, we could say that you are having a negative mood, and that mood might be fearful. Okay, fine, but then how does fearful play into the setting? Well, typically it's going to be things like it was dark. Maybe there were creaky floorboards, or you were hearing something, or the character's hearing something in the distance. That's creating your mood. Okay, so think of it as that. Mood is going to be the atmosphere based on what the author's told you. It's what you get when you're reading. It also can be anything from happy to sad to angry. And it's how it affects you personally. It can vary from person to person, but oftentimes you will notice that the authors are wanting to create a certain mood, and that's what feeds into their word choice. So how do you feel about what the characters are facing in the story? Now, the other one is the fact that the mood can be positive or negative. You want to keep in mind that you want to notice, what is the vibe of the story at that moment? how is, a setting isn't just a place, it's an emotional environment. So as the dog is telling the story in chapter 8, is it a positive mood that you're feeling as you read, or do you find yourself feeling sad, negative, nervous? And these are some of the words that would describe a mood. Notice they aren't words like smart. That's not a mood. Okay, it's a feeling. So you're going to see words like energetic or hopeful, or on the other side, you might see something like scared or lonely. Those are feelings you can actually have. The next one is what is tone. And this is where I want you to be very careful not to confuse this. Tone is not you. Tone is actually the author's feelings towards what's happening. Okay, so the person who wrote the story has an attitude towards the text. And you can pick up on that attitude because they're going to show it through the narrator's, words, because they're the ones that created the narrator's words. And it also, how the author is feeling or showing their feelings through their words is affected by the setting. Okay, where they put the characters is going to affect how the author is, creating the text through his or her feelings. So tone is the attitude of the author towards the subject, but it also is descriptions of how the character's feeling because the author created those characters, okay? And that's the tone. How does the character or the narrator feel, since they are basically representing the author? Example, if you were going to read something and it was about somebody's first date, and the words that he's using are dreaded or being forced to go on the date. Okay, when you see words like dreaded and forced, you could assume that the person writing this did not enjoy this date. It's going to be clear the attitude was negative, and you're going to pick up on that based on the words being used as the story is being told. Now, there are 3 different types of tones. You can have a positive tone from the author where you can tell the author is feeling, calm, or the author is feeling proud, and that is interwoven throughout the page. Or it could go the other way, and this is usually very obvious. If the author is hostile about what's going on, or creating the feeling of being annoyed or depressed, you're going to pick up on that. Yes, the tone does affect your mood, but it doesn't always have to match. And then the neutral tone is that you really don't pick up on anything in particular. They're staying very objective. They're not showing a lot of concern one way or another. And sometimes you'll pick up on the dog's not really having a concern or picking a side of positive or negative. The point is the tone and the mood feed into the setting, and that then can feed into a theme or a lesson. Everything's thought out. So the tone and the mood the author wants to create, the setting that the author's inferring, all is going to be used to help fall into a lesson in the story. Now, to practice this, you're going to need 3 sticky notes. What I would like you to do is label one sticky note setting at the top, another one will say mood at the top, and then the last one just put tone. I don't care which order you use them in. But what you're going to do is, as you read chapter 8, you're going to look for some spots to put each of the sticky notes. What you'll do is you're going to look for a spot where you're like, yeah, I'm picking up on the setting here. I can see where there's some hints towards the setting. It's giving some details of the things that we just talked about, and you're going to put it there. You will make sure that that sticky note is divided into 2 columns. You're going to label one with a number 1 and the other one with a number 2. You will use that section that you found as a good example of setting, and you are going to, on the left-hand side, give me some ways that the setting that you picked out on that page, the way that they've developed the setting, how does that setting go with remember that evil exists in the world? Okay, so let's pretend that's the theme. How does the setting on that particular page relate to that? And that's what you'll write in column 1. Then you're going to flip it, and you're going to look for the setting to either change, or you can even use some of the same details, but it's going to show security comes from a loving family. All right, if you can't find it on that same page, that's fine. Just put the page number in the second column of the setting you want to use for the positive theme. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you that the setting in one part of the chapter could feed into a negative theme, and then as it changes, it could feed into a positive theme. So you're going to have one of each on each of these sticky notes. Now, instead of putting a sticky note on each one, one for the positive theme, one for the negative theme, just do one for setting, put it on the page, and then write why it goes with number 1. And then when you find one that goes with number 2, just put that page number. You don't have to move the sticky note, and write why it goes with the positive theme of security coming from the family. Then you're going to go on, you're going to do it again. You're going to find a section in chapter 8 that you're like, okay, here's a mood being developed. This is how I feel right now in the book. If it's a positive mood, I'd probably use it on side 2. Security comes from the love of a family. If you feel yourself having a negative mood, I'd use the one about evil existing. So you're trying to find a piece of evidence of mood that's created in you that does either a positive or a negative. And then the last one is tone. Same thing, divided into 2 columns. On the left-hand side, I want you to find a section where you can sense that the author's tone is one that is basically developing that evil exists in the world. And then find another one where the author's tone or attitude is obviously one about a loving family. I know this is a little confusing, but give it your best shot. We can always straighten it out on Tuesday, but I want everybody to try and just do your best, and we can look at it when you get to class. All right, and don't forget to keep reading your IRP book. See you soon.